Hey, hope you had a good lunch. So in my experience, every breakthrough, especially when it comes to technology, needs two things for it to kind of work together. And I think that's kind of a combination of intent and capability. So with intent, I mean the willingness to do something remarkable, doing something out of the box, doing something innovative. So in AI terms, if you call it, if you go back in history, there's been like documented knowledge that for about a century, people already been kind of wanting to have machines that think, reason, behave like human intelligence, and do things innovatively. So we've always had that intent. And the capability in this case would be the skills, the data, the technology to support that intent. So I tried to create a picture using AI about an AI lecture that happened in Dartmouth University in 1956, where they wanted to have, they were already discussing about artificial intelligence when the capability was probably good enough to only balance the checkbook, right? So, and whether it's movies, whether it's books being written, so for decades we've always wanted to have that kind of capability. From an intent perspective, it was there, but finally we are at a time where the two lines are meeting, and that's where I think the value or the opportunity currently exists, where we could finally do something and make that intent more pragmatic. Now, I may say something controversial, but it's a geek conference, so I'm going to take a chance anyway. So Tim Harford, who some of you may know, he's a British journalist, economist, he's a podcaster as well. Do people know him over here? Yeah, I thought he'd be quite popular. So I attended one of his talks. He's written quite a number of books as well at the MTPCon a couple of years ago. And he speaks about the toilet paper principle. Anybody knows what this could be? Yeah? Would you like to share that? Excuse me? So, no, maybe that's a tissue paper principle. I think what Tim Harford says is that a technology really becomes truly transformative when it's as cheap as a toilet paper. So it's probably as cheap that you can wipe anything with it. So when it comes to AI, have we reached that toilet paper moment for AI? It's probably controversial. People have different perspectives about it. But from a usability perspective, keeping us as users, as people who are going to be using that technology, perhaps we've arrived at that toilet paper moment where technology is in our phones, is in our machines. Probably some of us have used it today already. And it's definitely as cheap or cheap enough for us to be able to use it like a toilet paper. And I think that's where the capability and intent kind of come together, and then that's an opportunity to do something meaningful at that point. So the computing costs, as you may know, they've kind of dropped over 100,000 times with the new cloud computing GPUs. They are more efficient than more than 100 times than very recent CPUs. So that's what I mean, that we finally are able to have the capability to make our intent real. So with that, I think it's important for us to get comfortable with AI and use it to our advantage. The fact that the capability and intent lines are meeting, and see how, at least in my talk, we could do something meaningful in our product management craft, right? So hey everyone, my name is Munish Malik. I'm a product principal and I work with the India business unit. So, cool. So my talk is about AI and product management, but essentially, hopefully you'll be able to draw parallels about using the technology in several use cases where you may be working as well. The first thing is about boosting productivity. There's already a lot of conversations that are happening, but I think the biggest frustration And the biggest expectation from product managers or from product management is ensuring that we are building the right thing. Right? If you look around, there's kind of a feature factory around us, so many features being built most of the times. But how many of those features are really being utilized, and how many of them are really driving business outcomes? So I think if there is one area that if I were to pick, where can AI make an impact for product management, I think that's got to be helping product management, helping technology initiatives figure out what's the right bet, or which are the areas to bet on, or what's the right hypotheses to kind of place the bet. So I'll be talking a bit about that side. I think there is, so product manager or product management is probably a role that's kind of has to work a lot with different stakeholder groups, right? I mean, we're also heavily business focused, heavily stakeholder focused. Then we've got to work with the teams to deliver those products as well. So collaboration or working together with teams is a key component of product management. So I'll talk a bit about how I think AI is kind of supporting our ways of working and changing how we traditionally used to work into something that's more collaborative, more creative, improving our storytelling, things like that. And towards the end, the third area of my talk is going to be about product management, similar to other functions that exist, have certain kind of specific needs. And I'll be sharing some examples where I'm using or tailoring or fine-tuning or building custom GPTs, agents, to fulfill some of those needs for me, right? And hopefully those examples could be useful for you to be able to build your agents or your custom GPTs to solve the use cases that you have. So that's what my talk is about today. So let's explore. So the first area, which I said the biggest frustration that exists in product management is, are we building the right thing, right? And that probably begins with a stage that I call as problem fluency or discovery, that's kind of more popularly known as, where are we understanding the problem sufficiently enough for us to be able to find the right problem to kind of solve. So I thought, let me explain that through an example to not keep it very contextual. So I have an AI learning group, and one of the problems we were kind of wanting to solve was, as a product manager, I was exploring the opportunity to build a fitness app, specially designed for business professionals in India. Preliminary conversations that we did and some preliminary user research that we conducted, we identified that the main struggle or the main barrier was the struggle to find time to work out. And however, we felt that those insights were quite anecdotal. Do we just now go ahead and build a feature or build a product just because we have some preliminary research talking about these challenges? We thought we need to do some solid structured research to validate the problem, to validate the target demographic that we had identified, and then to be able to move in that direction with confidence. Right, so that was the problem space that we were kind of exploring, and that brings me to kind of the activity of research, understanding the complexities, understanding our problem space enough so that we are able to maneuver that space with confidence and have good idea about which problem that we want to solve. So recently. OpenAI and many other technology tools companies have been releasing a feature that they're calling as deep research. And how OpenAI describes it is that it's an agent that can do work for you independently, right? So you give it a prompt, and ChatGPT will find, analyze, and synthesize hundreds, probably thousands of online resources, and it can create a comprehensive report to assist in decision making. So if you just take a step back and think about how powerful this is, like doing a very comprehensive market competitive user research that was previously only accessible to us through research companies, and now it's probably available to us at our fingertips. And it's getting even better as and when kind of I'm talking to you. So the capability that it had like a few months back, the capabilities that it has even now, is much, much better. It's gone further away from, in addition to secondary online resources from the internet, you can hook in your own primary data as well, and then it can combine primary data with kind of secondary knowledge from the internet and give you meaningful insights for you to be able to take certain decisions. And with that, I want to share a technique that I've started to kind of experiment with, which I'm kind of calling it COSID. And the idea behind that is that it's a way to structure our conversations or prompts with AI more effectively. And what I'm saying is that if we think that the deep research features or AI is kind of a research partner or a research analyst, and the quality of that research analyst, the output that it produces, is directly proportional to the quality of brief that I will provide to that research analyst, all right? So with that, I started experimenting. And then what I noticed was, if there is a certain structure in which if we can talk to AI, we see the quality of output or the quality of results that kind of come out are really remarkable. And they really help us to be able to make that decision. And I'll talk a bit about also why it's important to be able to not just structure, but the reason behind engaging, reason behind kind of thinking deep about how we engage with the technology. So the first part of the COSID structure is what we're calling as the context. So establishing the environment and situational factors influencing the research space. So in this example that I was previously telling you, I am a product manager and I'm exploring fitness solution for Indian professionals with the anecdotal evidence suggesting that the time is a constraint that due to which people are not adopting fitness apps in India. And the objective, so O stands for objective, which is about articulating specific goals and outcomes that the research aims to achieve. So in our experience, it was to validate that if a sufficient market gap really exists in that target demographic. And the other thing is also to not only make AI run in a certain direction, but if AI is finding opportunities in a different direction, also prompting it like that as well. So in our case, we also said that if there is a more promising demographic that you have, we want you to research that as well, and then let us know about those kind of factors. And then the scope, so which is about kind of defining the boundaries and parameters for that specific investigation. So in our context, it was about Indian professionals and not just analyzing domestic companies or domestic solutions, but also global apps that are quite popular in India, and then including broader wellness, not just about working out or so those were the kind of areas that we wanted to be scoped. And then what was of interest to us? We wanted to understand how lucrative the opportunity is, so to be able to understand the audience size, to be able to understand the market size, to be able to understand the barriers that exist due to which people are not able to adopt these habits. So we were thinking time barriers, but we wanted to explore further. Are there any cultural barriers, or are there other kind of barriers that are preventing people? And then what are the competitors? What the competition is really doing, and then what are some specific deliverables that we'd like to see? So, for instance, we'd like to see some structured reports. We'd like to see some key takeaways, credible, cited sources, and hopefully unbiased research. But if it ended up consuming resources like a competitor's research, then provide that perspective as well, that yes, this is the knowledge, but it could be biased because the research was funded by a competitor. I think the other thing that I'm kind of noticing about deep research or about engaging in such kind of structured prompting is that it is making us think about what is it that we want to get out from AI. So if you typically go with conversational style prompting, where you're not putting your prompts in nice, kind of a beautifully structured, kind of framework, but instead simply kind of talking to AI, you're kind of relying more on AI to be able to guide you. Whereas what my experience has been is that by working in the industry for about 2 decades, and all of us have certain experiences that we've had in our domains, if we utilize all that knowledge, all that experience that we've gathered in prompting AI, what is of interest to us? What is it that we want you to do? Where are the areas that we want you to kind of investigate? That makes us think a lot about what are the decisions that we want to make, what is of interest to us, and that is where I think the human-AI collaboration can achieve remarkable results rather than purely relying on AI and just doing a very conversational style prompting. And I highly encourage people to try and experiment. The more complex the activity or the more risky your function is, I think the more important it is for us to be able to engage with AI in kind of structured prompting. So I'm going to demonstrate that through some examples about what I just mentioned. So just give me a moment. Yep. Cool. So as I mentioned to you, that OpenAI and Perplexity, Gemini, I mean, we have various avenues or organizations or tools available to conduct deep research. So if you're trying to solve a complex problem, one is that go and do deep research in multiple avenues rather than relying purely on one, because we've seen enough evidence where what we sometimes get, in most cases, it's related, but it could be complementary. Like Perplexity might reveal some insights that OpenAI missed. That's something that we're kind of noticing, but rarely we are seeing contradictory insights, but what we're kind of seeing is kind of complementary or supplementary insights that can double down or help in conducting that research. So the prompt that you see over here is a similar kind of a prompt that I engaged with OpenAI and also with Gemini, and it asked some follow-up questions which are very, very meaningful for me to kind of respond to. And then it provided me like a 35, 40 pages of comprehensive market competitive research, which otherwise would have probably taken weeks. And there is some real case studies where I try to do with people who are actually conducting market research and have actually done market research and spend some time with them to see if we can together work on prompts. So typically what I'm observing is that creating research-oriented prompts can sometimes take anywhere between 45 minutes to 1 hour or maybe even more than that. But the value or the output that we receive is kind of definitely worth it. I'll not go over the whole research output, but one thing that I'm really liking is that even if we kind of outsource this to a marketing company or undertake this ourselves, we'll have to go over that research, right? And the best part about AI is also you can see the chain of thought. So you can see what AI is thinking when it undertakes that market research, and you have an opportunity to be able to influence that chain of thought. If you think AI is going in the wrong direction, you can prompt it and revise that. But what Gemini has kind of done is that once it creates that 35, 40 pages of market research, you have an option to be able to convert that research into some kind of a website or some kind of a way for you to consume that research more effectively. And that's something that I really loved about it. So if you look at the example that we were kind of exploring, it kind of started with an exec summary that I put it in the prompt as well. So it speaks about the Indian professionals are a significant receptive market. Time scarcity and motivational hurdles, they demand hyper convenient and engaging holistic app solutions. Very interestingly, because we did not want it only to move in the direction that we are asking it to, but we wanted the research to be a bit more broad, right? If there are any blind spots, if there are any more promising demographics that we were overlooking. So it provided Gen Z women as more potential personas or more potential demographics for us to kind of focus on. And very interestingly, and which were something that we were expecting as well, that it was going to say things around tier 2 cities and not tier 1 cities in India where the opportunity really exists. So even though we did not prompt it, we were wanting to see whether that kind of knowledge kind of comes out, and it did. And then not only that, it does a competitive analysis as well, because that's what we prompted it to do, and then it provided us some opportunities or features or some bets that we could potentially place where the opportunity exists. It kind of provided some marketing research companies that talk about where the market forecast of fitness apps in India currently exists and the rate at which it is growing. And as you can see, all of them between 16 to 19% talk about that's the kind of the CAGR that each of these companies were expecting. This is something I really loved. It nicely gave me the way to compare several demographics. What were the pain points in each of those demographics? Like, for example, the professionals in 25 to 40, what their pain points were around time scarcity, motivational deficit, safety and cultural blockers. And I'll skip Gen Z women in 40 plus cohort for a moment, which it also analyzed. And as I said, for each of these things, it's like actual academic research, where each of these research, it's cited with the source, if you look at the raw data. And but like in the tier 2 residents in India, for example, like you wouldn't believe, like most of tier 2 cities in India wouldn't be speaking English language, but all the fitness apps or solutions that are available in India, they're all in English. So that itself is kind of a big cultural or language barrier for people to adopt. Also, if there are no good streets to run, if there are no ecosystem, like no gymnasiums, etc., those kind of apps or solutions that are present in India are not something that are going to be useful for people who live in tier 2 cities. So there was an aspect of cultural sensitivity, or there was actual aspect of localization that was important to be able to come up with solutions that address the lack of physical infrastructure. And of course, price sensitivity as well. And then similarly, we got very good insights if you want to focus on women, the 40 plus cohort as well. And then it gave a wonderful competitive comparison of all the top companies in India, whether it's Healthify, Cult, Nike, Fitter, that have great presence in India, and then it presented where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are. And then opportunities for us to be able to potentially target as well. So like deep cultural localization, things, a fitness app should not always be about running or about working out. Perhaps people in cities in India, they are doing fitness in different ways. Maybe yoga could be one, or the meditation, chanting, spirituality, mental well-being. So I think we kind of got great insights, great ideas for us to kind of explore further, and all that wonderful insights, which would have taken us weeks or months for us to be able to do through external research companies or resources, to be able to have that at our fingertips, within a very, very short amount of time. So yeah, that's kind of one area that I wanted to talk to you about today, which was about doing this deep research. And on the OpenAI website, it talks about several deep research use cases as well. It talks about how some of the sample scenarios in the business, in UX design, in shopping, medical research, where deep research can potentially be used and can pay rich dividends to the activities that we are performing. So yeah, that's one area that I highly encourage people to explore. Earlier, there used to be a constraint on the deep research only used to be available in paid plans, but now I think OpenAI has kind of released up to 5 to 10 research that you could do per month for free. So a great opportunity for people to kind of go and explore the capability of it. Cool. So that is that. And then not only doing that research, right? I mean, not only, of course, there were conversations yesterday morning about expediting the whole discovery phase. I will not have time to go deeper into that today, but let's say we identified some promising demographics within the market research that we did. And this is, in reality, we did that. So what we did was, based on the hypotheses or based on the demographics that we prioritized, we identified about 20 people, and then we created surveys by kind of engaging with AI in COSID-like structures, created some surveys, you use that to summarize some real-time responses as and when we were kind of interviewing people. Of course, everybody would have seen ways to be able to record interviews and transcribe surveys and emerge insights and things like that. and then use AI to be able to uncover some common themes. And are those themes that we uncovered, so for example, lack of time during peak business hours or preferring local language content, what AI gave through market research or through deep research is that triangulating well with real interviews, right? So not just kind of relying on AI to go build features, but then triangulating that knowledge with the insights that we are gathering from real people, and then triangulating all those things, and then seeing, are we able to have common insights? Yeah, we just not go deep into it, but I think these are some of the things that we tried to uncover in our surveys. And the opportunity was also, then we were able to kind of refine our demographic as well. And then if we are a business, we can confirm the feasibility as well. So let's say we've identified a demographic, but then as a business, do we have our business model, are we in a, so combining kind of the feasibility and viability aspect of the opportunity that we've kind of identified. So the persona that we kind of looked at was Rohit, 40, runs a small textile shop in India, works 10 hours daily, has moderate smartphone usage, is open to budget-friendly solutions, and then a solution that respects his cultural context and busy lifestyle. So those are some of the insights that we kind of gathered, and we kind of ran a much larger survey and then kind of similar assessment to identify, the top 2 or 3 bets that we'd like to place. We would like to, place a bet on. And a couple of hypotheses that kind of came out through that analysis was, if we introduce a 15-minute guided yoga sessions when chanting in a local language, then 50% of small business users like Anuj will adopt this routine at least 3 times a week, finding it both culturally resonant. The other hypotheses that we were able to get out from this whole AI-assisted discovery and prioritization activity was a real-time feedback. So people don't have trainers, people don't have access to professional fitness studios, etc. So there is an app that can, record how they're doing those exercises and then can give them real-time feedback. That's something that people were finding a lot of value. So that's the whole kind of, discovery and prioritization and that kind of a phase that I'm seeing a lot of value in using AI to become my partner there. The other area that I wanted to explore today is around enhanced collaboration and creativity, storytelling, documentation, etc. So let's explore that a little bit more. So let's talk about the first one, where it's kind of blended ways of working. So recently at Equal Experts, I've started off as an AI-assisted discovery and delivery initiative. And what we're noticing there is that the style in which we are kind of doing kind of a product engineering collaboration is very different to how we are doing it now. We are seeing that the functions are working more closely during the course of the day. So there is a lot of rapid iterations that keep on happening. A lot of times we are mobbing together. And we are trying to see, so for instance, one of the use cases that we were looking at was reverse engineering or analyzing a system that was built several years back and trying to understand what that system really does. And then use AI-assisted or LLM-assisted code analysis and interpret code and interpret business logic from looking at the code base. Yeah? So that's an activity that product and engineering kind of collaborated, did together, created great quality prompts, structured them nicely, and then ran them on, using some LLM support, and then analyzing the codes and seeing what is the business knowledge or what is the business logic that is present in that application. And not just that, even as we are seeing, as we kind of move on to building or creating or delivering things, we are seeing that there are a lot of rapid iterations that keep on happening where we use AI to create something and then the product and engineers mob and look at that, refine that, and improve that further. So I think that's one. So the handoff essentially that used to happen where you kind of do something and hand it off to engineering, that's becoming a bit more blended. And there's kind of a real-time collaboration that we're experiencing there. The other thing that I wanted to quickly mention is creative documentation, storytelling, ideation, how a product manager is explaining their ideas to the team members, how a product manager can explain their ideas to the stakeholders or to the sponsors is a key component in the expectations of in product management. And one thing that we kind of noticed in this experiment that we did with this client, where we're doing this AI-assisted discovery and delivery, is combining the user journeys or the journey maps that we used to be having, but not just looking at it from that perspective, talking about where the business value is present and where in the architecture or where in the code are those journeys getting supported as well. So if you look at a journey, you kind of look at a certain area and then you click on that and then you'll be able to drill down. You can actually go from the journey map directly into the code and see where in the code is actually those journeys are kind of getting supported or where in the architecture. And that's something that, at least in my experience, we've never really seen something like that. And when we presented those kind of visualizations in front of our stakeholders, I think they had like a big aha moment. And we got reviews that they had never seen a documentation like that, let alone documentation of a legacy system that very few people had knowledge about. So that's just another area that I'm kind of looking at is interactive PRDs. So PRDs I always felt was kind of one-way communication. Kind of you create a PRD and then you hand it off to engineers. But you can actually enrich those PRDs and you can have kind of HTMLs or workflows attached to those PRDs. So if you're looking at something, and imagine if you have actual prototype or actual kind of a workflow that you can look at while you are reading through a PRD. So again, that's something totally new and something I feel it's superb. There's another interesting thing, although I'm not using it that much, but I know a lot of product managers, especially in startups and people who are at positions where they have to do a lot of presentations. Making presentations, and the group product manager whom I was speaking, she gave a great insight when I was discussing this with her, is that as product managers, we spend a lot of time we want to spend a lot of time in creative thinking, but instead we end up spending time in creating decks, creating reports, creating presentations, things like that. And we'd just like to offload some of that. So something that I wanted to quickly demonstrate. I don't know how good the internet is. So what I did was I just slapped all the 32 pages of deep research that I was telling you about on Gamma. And then it asked me what does it want me to create. I said, okay, maybe I want to create a presentation that I want to pitch to my investors. So anyway, so it's taking time. So what it does is that it's going to give you this kind of a view where it still has, it's given me that. So it's the same research that I had. Nothing has changed so far. But it asks me what's the format in which I'd like it to kind of create. So the text content, maybe I'd like that to be quite detailed. Because it's an important thing, and then maybe the tone that I said, right for investors and execs who are interested in the Indian fitness app, and then provide data tables, charts, etc. So it asks to select a theme, and even the presentation that I'm presenting now, you can use, for instance, you can use your own company's branding colors, and then you can click generate. Yeah, so it can take a bit of time depending on how fast the internet really is. So as you can see, we had that 35, 40 pages long deep research that it ended up kind of converting it into kind of a good-looking presentation deck. Of course, as a product manager, I would want to validate what all it has created. Is that something that I'd still like my investors to kind of look at? But importantly, the aspect of creating, documentation is something that we have support rather than, so our thinking can go more in the content rather than kind of spending energies and kind of, beautifying it or kind of creating some kind of a good-looking deck. So, and it's highly comprehensive. It's doing that, as you can see, it's doing that competitive analysis, and I'll not walk you through this because I think I've already done that, but it's highly, highly accurate. I've tried it quite a few times. Although I'm not using it personally on my own for my equal experts use cases, but just wanted to share that a lot of product managers, especially out in the industry, in the startups, are using a lot of these things as well. And then prototyping, I think some of you may have experienced this already, but kind of explaining our ideas through tools like V0 or Lovable or Replit, creating some workflows, and then having those prototypes for us to be able to present to our team members, to our stakeholders. And another thing that I'm quite excited about is kind of visualization of our concepts. So, picture speaks 1,000 words, and I think that's why kind of prototyping and these things are quite helpful for us to be able to engage with our teams. But I think even better if there's a feature that I want to build, and if I can bring that feature to life in videos or through images or things like that. So you remember that kind of real-time feedback that I was telling you. So if you're kind of working out, there is something that tells you whether kind of analyzes your form. So you're kind of just exploring something, kind of a middle-aged Sikh man in Punjab, doing kind of crunches, and then it kind of lights up which body parts of were kind of getting worked, and is the form kind of accurate and things like that, and the AI is kind of talking and things like that. So another thing we wanted to explore was you're working out, you're in your office, but maybe you have like 5-minute, 10-minute micro workout sessions, and then kind of sharing these concepts. It looks very funny. And but I think there's an opportunity here where our thinking, we can put that into some kind of creative visualization and use that to be able to engage with our team members. That that's something that I'm thinking about. What's your view on that, or things like that. So that's another thing that we're kind of experimenting a lot, and I definitely see there's a lot of potential there. Okay, coming to the end. All right, so. I've spoken a lot, but another thing that I'm very excited about is using AI in the way, or kind of letting AI respond to me in the knowledge base that I prefer. All right, so I think I'm noticing that, of course, like most of the times LLMs are quite capable, and then the knowledge that they've been trained on is good enough. But it could be that we're all experts in our own domains, and maybe we have some preference about the knowledge sources. Right? And maybe we want AI to talk to us in those sources. Maybe we want AI to be able to engage with us in a certain knowledge base. So, for instance, I'm a big proponent of design sprints, and I've run several of them myself. And then, but I just don't want to rely on any kind of design sprint knowledge that exists on the internet, and I don't know what LLMs have been trained on, but there is a kind of a knowledge base that I have created on my own, and there are some authors, there are some publicly available blog posts, there are some books that I kind of follow and kind of rely on. So what I've done is that I've created like my own custom GPT on design sprints, on the knowledge that I've kind of rely on, bank on, have confidence on, and then ask it to only refer to that knowledge and not any other thing that it can find. Similarly, if you're in a position to be able to craft user stories, there's a certain way in which I think I get good value on a certain kind of user stories, not general LLM trained way. So kind of have a user stories companion that I've kind of created that helps me to be able to craft user stories the way I like them to be, or the way I think I can deliver better value. I was working at an investment bank, and I was working there with Chris Matz, who some of you may know. He's kind of an expert in risk management. He's been an agile coach as well. He talks a lot about product thinking, metrics, hierarchy, things like that. And he's also kind of co-created the given, when, then in the BDD structure along with Dan North. So I really enjoyed my time working with Chris, bouncing ideas off him, etc. And then after the engagement got over, I was hoping that I was losing out on some of the thinking or knowledge that Chris has. So what I did was I kind of created Chris Matt's bot. So he's probably written hundreds of blog articles, and that's the kind of knowledge that I feel quite confident about, because I think those are all experience reports. Those are all things publicly available, but something that he kind of comes up with a lot of confidence. So I've invited Chris. So I said, Chris, maybe you can share your perspective, and then I'll quickly walk you through the bot as well. Uh, let's see if this works. Okay, so the speakers are not that great, so let's see if this works.
Hi Munish, hi all you product curious individuals out there. So Munish asked me just to share thoughts on AI and how it's going to affect product. So the answer is massive. It's going to be huge impact. And I think the big difference with AI compared to other techniques is other techniques, the technique tells you what it's going to do. The problem with AI is that it just does everything, does loads of stuff, not everything, but just so much stuff that it feels like everything. And so my advice to you is to think of a problem that you're trying to solve and then just ask what your favorite LLM how to help you solve that problem. And then as you get the answers, get it to drill down, so give me an example of an image. What would a screen look like for my product? Those kind of things, and it's going to be great for that. And so there's going to be two ways that it's massively going to disrupt. Number one is in actually doing product. It will be very helpful as a tool to help product managers. Notice I'm not saying that AI is going to replace product managers, but it's going to be a great tool for product managers. And the other is embedding LLMs into our products. And here's my prediction: in 2 to 5 years, the vast majority of the interaction people will have with products will be voice activated. It will no longer be via a screen. You won't be entering your details. You'll be having a conversation with an LLM that will actually get all the data and details from you. If you've got any questions, you could call me. Alternatively, Munish has created an amazing chatbot. And I'm going to now just share that chatbot with you. Here we go. Can you see the chatbot? So this is the Papa Christmas bot, which is unofficial at the moment, but Munish and I are working on making it official. You can start off by asking it some questions like, can you explain the impact of culture on risk-taking in organizations? And it will answer as if it was me. It will give you a ranty, really angry answer to that, explaining how cultures have an impact. Alternatively, we might say, how might failureship impact product development? And here we go. There you go. Failureship, the gift that keeps on giving, mediocrity. Yep, so even got that snarkiness that I'm famous for as well. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll hand it back to you, Munish. Thank you. Bye.
Cool. So yeah, I think Chris was talking about having conversations in voice, and that's something I've started to do a lot. So maybe we can do a real experiment. So if somebody has a question for Chris, you're going to ask the bot in voice mode, and we'll see what it responds. And then, of course, we've kind of, so if your questions are in agile space or kind of, risk management, product thinking, etc. So that's probably what Chris is good at. That's what it kind of, he's been writing about. And we also kind of told Chris to be able, the bot to be able to respond in the way in which Chris does. So to be able to have those conversations that look more authentic. So we're going to do a real experiment, just like maybe just like one chat, and we'll see. Any questions anybody has for Chris? Anything anybody would like to ask? Yeah?
I can go on. I guess just based on that sort of deep research thing, I guess how does the deep research manage the quality and validity of the data that it's using? I guess because if you're basing decisions on it, you want that quality of the data to be really.
So I've not trained it on this. Okay. So, but I'm going to ask anyway, and let's see what it responds. So, hey Chris, I think the question is around the validity of the output that the deep research in AI is producing. How confident we can be by looking at that output? What are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
Poor Chris. Anyways, so I think that depends a bit on the internet as well. So
ChatGPT is down today.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you can try that later. And you just love the way it kind of engages and even answers or questions at which Chris thinks that he does not have enough knowledge. So there's a very funny or interactive way. But the bigger message or the bigger theme that I had was you can kind of create your own kind of personal GPTs, which are very easy to create anyway. Rather than creating LLMs through Cursor or creating agents through Cursor or tools, you can just train the custom GPTs on the knowledge base and put the needed instructions to be able to refer to the knowledge base that you have provided, which the space is quite significant. So you have an opportunity to be able to train your LLMs, which is actually such an expensive activity. But now we finally have a way for us to be able to do that and then engage with AI accordingly. So I have like I have a learning group, but I'm just see that I'm right on time. So Barnaby is another person in our AI learning group, so he also has his thoughts on AI and product. But yeah, I guess that's my time. So yeah, that's a bit about using AI in product.